I always love to start right off the bat with just a 90-second pitch. One, who are you? What's your company's name? And what do you guys do?
Sure. Born and raised in India, learned what cultures are by my dad dragged me around the world. First, he did 4 degrees from 4 continents. So I'm a academic, but 34 years in the corporate world, I became a corporate servant and a practitioner. Sales operations, sales coaching is my depth where I come from. So my process is pretty simple. I really look at mental health. I look at where you are, look at resilience, because sales longevity is a big issue. 35% of salespeople leave the sales function by age 35. You learn a lot from that experience. So
Mhm.
that's where I am, and that's what I bring to the table, sir.
That's great. That's great. So let's talk a little bit about so you've obviously worked with a lot of companies. You've got a long history in it. What was one of the things that you saw kind of consistently over and over and over that you saw, I think I'm going to really work on this, or I'm going to put my focus right here?
Yeah, it's interesting you asked that question. I'm a father of two sons. So it's my wife's biggest misery is having three Deepaks in the house, right? And there's something that really happened. Both boys grew up, both boys got scholarships, did their degrees. Both boys, one went to Procter and Gamble, one went to Microsoft. I was excited as an Indian helicopter parent, right? Yeah, everything's going well. Here's the funny thing. They would call me at age 21 and they would complain to me about the things that I was complaining to myself and my parents 30 years ago. And Fuzzy, that made me realize that we have used AI, we have gone automation nuts, we've done so much streamlining, but some of the basic constructs of that socio-economic corporate employer relationship is just breaking apart, has not been helped properly. 30, 40 years ago, if you went to HR and asked HR, I would like to build a career, they would nod sagely. Today, HR says, yeah, yeah, sure, go do it. Who's stopping you? And now you're stuck there trying to figure out where do I start? And that's the biggest thing that was a big shock for me. We have evolved, but our employee contract has actually devolved down to where people will now tell me when I started in the workforce, I would say to people, I would love working for this company for 20 years. Today, my sons don't think like that. To
Mm,
them, you respect me, I like your values, I get a better offer, I will move. And that is a change. And I'm very intrigued by that change. And I want to look at that change and say, what can I do to help these people figure things out? Because if life has not changed in the 30 years, life ain't going to change. But values have changed of the people that are now going into the workforce. And
yeah.
AI, of course.
Yeah. And how are you sort of yourself managing that sort of, I guess, job satisfaction, or that, some of these things are just feelings sometimes, maybe just a feeling, an intuition or something like that. Like, how do you start to put some measuring on that to say yes or no, or point in directions?
It's very simple. When you start dieting and someone says to you, how much do you eat? You say, I don't eat that much.
Hmm.
Could you start recording it? And when you start recording it, your eyes pop. Shiza, I did not know I had 6 cookies during the day. Each cookie was 60 calories. Oh my gosh, 360 calories. What am I doing? So the first thing I tell people is, let's first put down on paper what exactly is it that's going through your thought process right now. I'll give you an
Right.
example. I have a framework that I could use in my coaching practice. It's very simple. Push pull. This actually comes from the educational field. So push pull is simply a framework that says, I want to do a transition. I want to move out of my job. I want to look for another job. Okay. Why do you want to leave your job? Let's start there first. What pushes you away versus what pulls you away? And they are two distinct things, Fuzzy. And here's what happens in that analysis. People suddenly tell me, you know what, Deepak, this is the first time in my life I actually realized that where I am is actually good for me. Because people don't think it through. And that's when you said the emotion thing, right? So when you're looking for a new job, you're either reacting to something or you're
Hmm.
attracted to something. So what we simply do is take a piece of paper and say, let's do, and in your language, let's put down the assets and the liabilities, the
Hmm.
pros and the cons, but we look at it from two separate points. Leaving a company and moving to another company is not the same side of the same coin. It's just not. You sometimes leave because you feel that you've been, how do you say, I have a toxic manager. But when I dig in deep, Fuzzy, you'll be shocked to learn the guys are not doing the job properly. They don't do the 30 dials every day. They are pretty lame at doing the CRM, so they don't get the fundamentals right. So the question I ask them is that if you are weak on those, you are now going to take this same stylistic effort of your behavior and attitude to the next job. Within 6 months, you're going to now collapse there also.
Hmm.
What do you want to do? Do you want to first work on it right now in a place where you are safe? You know the people and you're not going to be exposed. And that's when people falter. That first, no one's ever told them that to their face, that actually the problem is you. And that's, I think, where the coach's job comes in. Now, of course, we don't talk like that. My job is to help them self-reflect. But sometimes simple frameworks, you'll be surprised, right?
Hmm.
I don't know how to explain it, but that's it.
Do you find that it needs to be a two-sided coin? Meaning, does the work have to come from maybe the higher ups at a company as well as the person, or is it something that really just the employee can kind of do on their own and just help their mental state navigate whatever the system they're in?
That is $1 million question. Here's my response to this one, and I'll be extremely careful how I say it. I say this based on 1,500 interactions that I've seen. When you mess with your manager, you're the one that's likely to leave the job, not him. 99% of the time. So let's stop with this concept that you can tame, or the way to tame a manager is actually to fall into a certain way of managing upwards. And I've done this mistake. I've lost my job 3 times in my life. And all 3 times it was because of me not being able to align. And when the opportunity came, my name was number 1 on the list. The dude is too forceful. The dude is too arrogant. The dude does not listen. The dude is always critiquing me. So when someone comes to you and says that I have a toxic manager, I ask them, define toxicity first. You'll be surprised. On a scale of 1 to 10, most people react to a 3 also. You have a performance review and the manager only spent 8 minutes telling me how good I am, but 22 minutes telling me how bad I am. I said, what exactly did you think was going to happen in a performance review? If you were doing well, then he really doesn't need a performance review, right? He just walks up to the table and says, buddy, killing it.
Yeah.
And never calls you, and you know what's happening, and then you see the money. So this is how I would respond to that question.
Yeah, interesting. I'm just trying to imagine even my own settings of how maybe I've been on the boss side as well as the employee side in some of my own world, just trying to imagine some of the things I might have said, or maybe it's some of the thoughts or feelings. So, inside of this, on the investor side, how do you protect what you're doing? How do you flip this into business? Is it a coaching business? Is it just relationship building? How do you sort of describe it in terms of a way that, like, okay, this is what we do, we can repeat it, and this is why this is a business that's investable?
Sure. So I typically start off on a very simple note. Each and every person that I talk to has been 21 years old at some point in their life. And I always remind them, let's go back to your high school and your university journey. You're in college. You're bushy-tailed, you're bright-eyed. But what you don't realize is that the whole universe has aligned to help you. Your family. Most likely, if you take a bank loan, the bank is, and it's actually easier to get a loan for studying than easier to get a loan for getting a house or something else, right? If you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Now you have this, you are in this, what I call very structured scaffolding that's been given to you. People navigate that and tell me the college was the most difficult period in my life, because people get confused between working for studying, right? Studying is a very different experience than actually. 21-year-old gets a job, calls his mom and tells his mom that, mom, I'm a business analyst at blah, 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 or I'm an investment bank, and mom is proud of him. And if it's an Indian mom, she's running around in the street distributing sweets and screaming and shouting and telling everyone, oh man, come to my place, I'm feasting tonight, blah, blah. Now comes the fun part. Someone sits down at 21 at a desk, and 2 months later, he's calling his same mother and saying to her, mom, I don't understand what's going on here, but my boss doesn't have time for me. He's always got time for these 2 jokers who are always sucking up to him. And mom says, no, don't do anything stupid. Just stay there. Just hang in there. He goes to a friend. The friend is also at his age, 21, 22. He has no clue what to tell him. So I was looking at this. Then I listened to my sons asking me for advice because I'm a coach. My son also went to an external person because I told him that as a doctor, I won't self-medicate. Recommend you go to someone else. He came back and told me he blew $3,500 for a 10 session and he's still confused. And that told me something, that there is something happening out there. So there is what I call job search is very, very powerful because everyone wants to make a killing on the recruitment engine. Then on the other extreme, Fuzzy, you have what I call the elite coaching game, right? Fragmented, distributed, better coach, better up. There's so many other companies, mentorship and all that. You got this middle 21 to 29-year-old who can't afford executive coaching, doesn't understand the thinks that he's got enough friends. He's still a bit hustle oriented. He will also whack his health to death because he doesn't understand the difference between missing a meal and having a Diet Coke. It is that group of people that we are building I would say, loose scaffolding, because you can't bring too much structure to these people, right? They want freedom. And we also then dial up and dial down depending on now with AI. Our goal is to actually integrate the resume process, the interview process, the career process, the performance management process, the managing upwards process, but using it in, I would say, lightly layered cohorts with coaching built in. And literally, I would love to have a little Fuzzy sitting on their shoulder telling them, hey, I was looking at your email and I realized that that recruiter sent back to you a feedback on where the interview went bad. Do you want to work on it? Do you see what's happening here now? I think with where we are today and the way that we can integrate with technology, I think there's an opportunity, because I think LinkedIn was about career identity, and I'm going to focus on career progression, Fuzzy. That's how I see it from my perspective.
Yeah. And do you vision LinkedIn as a competitor or like a ChatGPT as competitors? What is a competitor in this world we're talking about?
I look, I don't want to give you a blasé answer, right? Because I'm not
Hmm.
YC, first of all, right? So I'm not going to give
Hmm.
you a kick-ass MBA answer. Look, at the end of the day, LinkedIn is a massive feeder for any business like mine, right? So how can I
Hmm.
call them competition? In fact, if I start positioning LinkedIn as a competition, I'm actually bringing more attention to LinkedIn. My goal is to
Hmm.
say that I coexist with a career identity. This
Hmm.
tells the
Hmm.
world who you are. And they also have a job portal and jobs thing that they've done very well. They also do Sales Navigator. None
Yeah.
of those three is where I want to be.
Right.
I actually want to say that, in fact, I would argue with you that the way I would like to operate is that if you don't have a LinkedIn profile, you're not welcome on my platform because I lose the ability to know what to do and how to help you. So it's just a subtlety I want to just throw in there. Now, ChatGPT. Absolutely, ChatGPT is a huge competition to anyone out there. Anyone, not just me. So I talk to a lot of people. In fact, I run a coaching business. 99% of the time when people tell me no, they tell me because you know what, I can prepare for the interview with ChatGPT and I'm going to choose Sarah's voice because I like her voice. She's Aussie.
Mm.
I'm like, okay. The selection criteria for ChatGPT is in the same way that you democratize usage of ChatGPT, you've also democratized people's belief that they can improve themselves. Here comes the problem. When everyone is using ChatGPT to polish their resumes, the question you should be asking first is, what happens to the recruiter who receives all these shiny resumes? You have a problem. Now they took it to the next level. Now it's literally mandatory. And I'm predicting by the end of 2026, every resume will require a 15-minute AI recruiter sound check. Hello, hello, testing one, two. Yeah. Now people are going to try to push on that. They won't be able to because these techniques and systems are actually much better than just a resume scan. So your ATS score is about to go for a change. So what we are now offering is longitudinal understanding of the individual as you live through life. It's like your family doctor. Your family doctor knows that when your child was born, they were born with, let's say, a hole in the heart. So he
Hmm.
he also knows that you have had a mental health situation. So he'll be very careful with the words he uses talking to you, right? Fuzzy stuff like
Right.
that. That is
Yeah.
where I think I'd like to differentiate myself. I'm looking
Hmm.
at, let's say that there's 1,000 people who I'm communicating with. That's my moat. I have communicated with 1,000 people. I know them intimately. I'd like to create a situation and circumstance. And I'm not saying this to hold them hostage, but to make them difficult for them to exit a setup like that because someone else has, because they lose this entire dynamic of longitudinal. Because my goal is not a 21-year-old who comes in and I want a JPEG to be, upsized or something. No, no, no. We're
Hmm.
talking about career progression here. And I also want to be very focused on career inflection points because a lot of people actually don't know. Every conversation matters. The way you market yourself, position yourself on a constant basis matters. Now, you can keep going to ChatGPT, and yes, you can create a project, you can create co-worker, and I respect that. But what you need is an ecosystem of multiplicity. You need to be
Yeah.
hit from multiple sides. And you and I know, follow up, 100% of business will typically come on the third or fifth follow up. So
Yep.
that multiple touch points will always help you when you're thinking through your career. And that's the argument
Yeah.
that I'm positioning.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great. I've worked with a lot of startups at this point, probably 300 in the equity space. Used to do Kickstarters. So I'm always working with that founder who is super excited, super energetic in the beginning. And one of the things that I've sort of struggled with, and I'm interested to hear your sort of take on this, is I always thought that I could kind of get everybody to sort of my level of enthusiasm and excitement. And I love working on this stuff and I'll send a million emails and I'll hustle and I'll do all this stuff. And I've had to really, as I've gotten older, realize, boy, there's just a lot of people that don't do any of that sort of stuff, or they just have an assumption, or they have they built the field, they should come, right? That sort of mindset. Can you actually coach everybody up, or is there some scenarios where it's like they just don't have the right mindset? They should just sort of stay in the career. That's really who they are, at the end of the day. Like, can you get to that sort of actual understanding? Because I think everybody should be like, yeah, let's go do it. Let's grow.
No,
Let's get big.
I'll be honest with you. Look, there's some people who will always self-select themselves for greatness, right?
Yeah.
It's like asking, can everyone get into Yale or Harvard with attitude? Or, no, it's not. Even if you can try, 4% of the guys get selected. I think it's lower now, Fuzzy, right? Those
Hmm.
who get rejected also are amazing in what they do. All I'm saying at this point is that I don't want people to get rejected for the wrong reasons.
Mm.
Chance. So we want to give a platform that's, let's take it this way. And I think I spoke about this to a lot of people, and I'm going to make sure I don't say it the wrong way on this call. Winning the uterine lottery or the country of origin should not be the definition of success in life. So I
Mm.
just want to democratize that process. This
Yeah.
is a bit of a do-good vibe from my perspective. Look, let's be honest here. Does well. For every 5 people, only 1 person subscribes, but 4 people take the benefit to it.
Mm-hmm.
I've always asked myself, so what's the benefit of getting a fantastic slide out if you're not paying for it? Think about that.
Mm-hmm.
But now
Yeah.
you have a situation with a platform like mine, which is actually getting something out of it. Now comes your question, people's motivation levels. Look, Fuzzy, there are going to be 20% people who will tell me that I don't need your service. Or focus on the 80% of not motivated. There's another 20% that's going to tell me I don't need your service because I'm good enough.
Mm-hmm.
My goal and objective is to simply tell them that I'm not competing against whatever you are doing. I'm simply adding layer to it. And you need to admit to one thing, Fuzzy. Every person that was against AI is today using AI. They don't go around screaming and shouting about it. All these guys that tell me that I am dynamic and I don't need you are all talking to friends or are in organizations where you actually have very smart people who actually mentor you very aggressively. So, yes. So, if I were to argue to, here's my debate and discussion. When you get mentorship from people that are in an organization, you actually need to ask yourself a question. Is that your commitment that you'll stay with this organization for the rest of your life? If not, then you really need to get a better perspective of what's happening in the world out there. There's a
Sure.
broader network. So, and usually 21 to 28 years old are fickle-minded as well. They do get interested in looking at special interest group, looking at associations outside of work that can help them not just grow from a career progression point of view, but actually understand what is happening in the market out there. And the final point I'll make to Fuzzy is that please don't misunderstand me when I say this, but everyone out there is scared of AI. Every task you do with AI, you're actually training your replacement. Tell me in
Yeah.
an era like that, why would people not want to consider looking around to see how can I remain sharp? Look, there are going to be 70% of the people that you can drag them to the water, to the pond, but they'll never drink.
Right.
Yes, they
Right.
are, right? But that exists in every. My goal is not to say that I want to be the next unicorn, right, Fuzzy? But I do want to make a decent sized business out of this. And if I look at 5 platforms out there that are doing similar work to what I do, but in the different spaces,
Mm-hmm.
Fuzzy, it took them 9 years to get to 100 million ARR. I'm respectful of that number, right? And will I get to it? The goal is to, like you said, you want to work with founders who have faith in themselves. Ask yourself a simple question first. At age 55, when everyone else is retiring, why would I decide to do a startup? Because I'm really fired up about this. And I'm also fired up
Yeah.
because there is actually a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. To anyone listening in, please, this is a do good. Yes, it starts from that space. But it's not a do good where I go bankrupt in the process or I have to run around for charity. Let's not be
Right.
naive here. And there is a group of
Yeah.
people that will fund this and operate this. And I like to work with those people.
Yeah. That's great. You mentioned verticals just a second ago. Is there a vertical that makes the most sense for what you're doing, or can it be applied to sort of any sort of industry or vertical?
It's like, there's a difference between job skills and soft skills and career progression. Managing upwards, unless you're reporting to a robot, I cannot help you, right? But everyone is reporting to a boss at some point. Yes, the span of control has changed over time. There used to be a time when they were like 3 to 7. Now it's 11 to 20 minimum. And these ratios do have an impact on your relationship. So for me, I would be very loath to tell you that no, there's a boundary to it, right? But I do believe that organizations which are highly structured, where promotions or ambition are low key, those audiences most necessarily would not. So, an NGO, as an example, or government services and stuff like that. That typically, but then I'm not doing anything or saying anything that's very unique, Fuzzy. That's normal. Those people also
Hmm.
don't go to LinkedIn as much as you think they should, right? And so
Right.
on, so on, and go to coaching and stuff. So, the same constraints that apply to other people may apply to me. But from my perspective, my design and my structure is that like I said to you, for me, it's a ICP which originates from LinkedIn. So if LinkedIn has 1 billion people, we did some maths, 400 million are in this age group of 21 to 35 that I'm targeting.
Mm.
Of that 400 million, if I even go for 20%, you're already looking at about what, 8 million, 80 million, sorry, people that I could address.
Mm.
Now
Mm.
let's not be, and by the way, this is English speaking. This is English speaking. And now, just yesterday, Google releases and says, YouTube, on your videos, I'll offer for free translation and dubbing. That
Hmm.
immediately means that if you're smart, you can figure out ways to have a video done in such a clean way that it's in English, but now immediately find an actor that can cut across 8 countries. That's one of the reasons why South Africa is top notch in advertising, Fuzzy, because they have people there that look like Westerners, can also look like
Hmm.
Mid Easterners, can look like Indians. That population is so
Yeah.
dynamic, right? And I live there, so I bring
Right.
that an example in. Sorry, long
Yeah.
winded one.
No, it's great. Yeah, it's fascinating. I want to talk a little bit about, so you're currently out doing a raise right now. You're running a Reg CF campaign. I want to talk a little bit about one, where you are in terms of what is necessary for funding and maybe what some of those use of funds would be to kind of help you grow to these next milestones.
Sure. So, Fuzzy, here's what really was an amazing experience for me is that as I thought that I had a massive Rolodex from a LinkedIn relationship point of view, 34 years, what surprised me was the inability of me to communicate to people, particularly close ones to me. And I think I over relied on relationship at one point. So then I had to start changing my messaging, right? So where am I right now is that we actually got a lot of commitments on paper, but when the time came to give us funding, we hit about 100K and we've been kind of stuck there. And I realized I need to now sharpen my messaging. Two, I think we have literally mopped up the 100, 200, $300 relationship circle. I really need to now push the ante to go outside of that. Two, along the way, we actually got approached by a technology partnering type of scenario, right? And this organization wanted to invest in us, but they want to invest is what I think, Jeff, you would call it sweat equity. We'll do the technical
Hmm.
work for you. We want equity for that. So they took 5% and for 65,000. Now I didn't get excited that, oh, that's the valuation of $1.3 million right there. You and I know that's not, you shouldn't
Right.
apply those metrics. We did that
Yeah.
in the days of the internet when it started. And I think it was at Mary Meeker and those guys were pushing very hard. And then everyone saw their backsides later on. I won't get
Hmm.
into that. But all I'm trying to say is that we're at about the 170 mark with all this stuff into it. I would really want to push my circle of influence further out. I've been kind of reticent without a strategy. So I'm right now working on my strategy to actually sharpen the message. I'm talking to a lot of people to understand where do you think there are loopholes in this argument? And that actually led us to bifurcate the message. We have a Wefunder message, which I think I'm going to
Hmm.
use in the retail space. But when I looked at the retail, when I looked at those guys that are raising 250 or more, I actually realized that 50% of those funds were coming from big checks. And that's fuzzy where I want to focus on because I think I actually misread the entire refund environment. And I'm saying this very candidly to people out there who are listening in. There may be future founders, future people want to raise funding. They may have an illusion. I think doing your homework is important. I thought I'd done my homework, but I was actually surprised. You get this wave of commitments, but when the time comes to put money in, and then of course, I can blame the external environment, right? Iran, and
Hmm.
tariff scenario, those do have impact. So timing can sometimes be against you, but it's like Chewy, right? Chewy came out, but before that we also had another pets.com and they went belly up, right? But here's
Hmm.
Chewy doing very well because the technology caught up. Timing sometimes it's just some of those things. For example, for
Yep.
Gamma, they are a rock star today because they pivoted very fast, very quick. 2018 they start, 2020 you start hearing things about automation and stuff. Then comes 2023, 2022, and things are now looking up with the Gen AI stuff, right? ChatGPT is starting up. They were very early. They were smart. They pivoted and they
Yeah.
were lean. And when you're lean,
Yep.
you can pivot faster. So coming back to the
Yeah.
funding question, that's where we are. My goal right now is to actually go and see if I can get to the diaries of some of the what we call the whales and have
Hmm.
a heart-to-heart conversation with them and position that because I think we funder by itself is not going to help me mop up and get to my objectives.
Yeah. Eh, I always love to have just a very quick answer for investors listening to this and going, all right, there's some interesting stuff here. How does Rise Up make money?
Yeah. Rise Up makes money by getting, I would say the ratio we're using right now, Jeff, is for every 5 people that we're going to bring on in the freemium tier, I don't expect more than 2 to ever pay by moving up to a paid tier, right? And that was the first revelation that surprised us. And to be honest with you, the first 5 that we bring on board are also self-selecting and they come on board based on a specific criteria. So that ratio is still slightly better. Usually the ratio is 5 people in, but only one pays. So we're working on 2. The way that we make money is that we are going to actually weave in AI natively into the entire conversation. Human beings are there, of course, but layer 1 and level 2 is going to be taking all this knowledge and all these proprietary frameworks that I have and putting them into a way that allows someone to start building out an understanding of themselves. So we start off with a career diagnostic. The career diagnostic then tells you what you need to do. That what you need to do is offered by me. You then join higher tiers because I've told you what you need to do. So I don't know how to explain this to you, but if you think about it, we have a career diagnostic. I offer this career diagnostic to you. You now get a very clear understanding of the areas where you need to work on. And at the same time, I tell you how I can help you work in those areas because there's no one else that can do it the way that we can because it's my proprietary template. So it's like getting an RFP spec that tells you need to get a car that has a Volkswagen steering wheel and a Chrysler Daimler gearbox. And then you say, where
Hmm.
the heck do I get that? And I say, by the way, I sell that.
Mm.
So that's
Mm.
the stickiness you build in. Now the people move into the tiers. The tiers are going to be largely cohort, not one-on-one coaching. One-on-one
Gotcha.
coaching is where you're going to get bankruptcy and you cannot scale. And I know that because I'm a one-on-one coach right now. Whether I like it or not, I cannot coach more than 4 customers a day. It takes me
Right.
1 hour with the customer, and it takes me 2 hours to prepare for the customer. It's
Right.
mathematically impossible. So that's not where
Yeah.
the scale is going to come from. The scale is going to come from cohorts, bringing in humans from around the globe, because I want to make this a multicultural business, and that's why I'm reaching out to specific curated coaches that can come in and come help support my methodology as well. Keep it
Hmm.
light, keep it simple, but a lot of self-reflection. So these AI tools is actually how we're going to speed things up, literally to the point where you're actually talking to Fuzzy, like I said, who's sitting on your shoulder and keeping the ball rolling. So it's a conversation. You can be working on your emails, and the technology partner that I'm working with, they're actually pretty smart. The reason I chose them is because they can help build integrations into the way you live. Your mailbox, I will integrate to that. I can literally see what recruiter messages are coming through, what negative messages are coming through, what rejections coming through, and I can start telling you what we're saying, what patterns we're saying. Two, Humantic AI and other companies like that, if you look very carefully, they've actually given us the art of understanding people's profiles. What happens if I can take that same technology and now flip it? And now you understand your leadership team in the organization better.
Mm.
Sellers want to understand the buying committee. What if I tell you I want you to understand the promotion committee? And now you start looking at that. And that is the power of what we can do. And I maybe I've said
Yeah.
way too much and my CTO is going to kill me. But that is the goal and agenda, is that the tech is there. The moat is going to be the longevity of how you keep these people together over time to make it so sticky that leaving is very expensive.
Yeah. Yeah. How do you think culture fits into this? Is there something that you have to kind of, you know, adjust or change based on regions or countries or values or past experiences that just are different from what mine are? I'm in Detroit, you're in Texas, you have your background, I have my background. How much does that play into a lot of this, of just who we are as humans?
You know what? I'll give you a straightforward answer. It doesn't play as much as you think. Let me give you an
Hmm.
example. All my books are written in American English and everyone loves them.
Mm.
They will accept the word color instead of the OUR, they see OR, they get it.
Hmm.
Rigor, it's for them, it's rigor is GOUR. Here's what I am telling people. We are living in a day and age of absolute collapse. Actually, look at sales as an example. I worked in 4 different countries in 4 different continents with salespeople all my life, right? Yes, they're culturally different. Some of them are very polite. Some of them are always uh, Dr. Bhootra. Americans are like Deepak. These are what I call tone. Forget the tone, look at the message. Every salesperson globally is customer focused. Every salesperson globally, same principles apply to human beings also. If you are a hustler, you will hustle, but you hustle differently.
Right.
Some people will hustle by aggressive language. Let's talk man to man, eyeball to eyeball. A Japanese won't talk like that, right? So
Right.
all I'm saying is that my whole intent and process is we also very focused on simple things. This will make you laugh, Fuzzy. When we are actually making our videos and our material, I actually tell the guys, I want you to find a middle path between English as a second language and someone who speaks English fluently. I want both to be happy. And we use AI for that. We actually have we've written complex scripts and techniques that actually look at. So when we're doing talk tracks or some of our videos, we're actually very focused on that. So I'll give you an example. Empathy is important. So the word empathy, right? Now, people say empathy is sympathy. Empathy is not sympathy. Because empathy is that you lost a child, I lost a child, I understand you and empathize. You lost a child, but I didn't lose a child, that's sympathy. Now,
Hmm.
I don't want to get into the semantics, but then the question is, what word can we use? Because a lot of people read the empathy, but the overall world thinks that empathy and sympathy are the same thing. Look for another word. The American never realizes it that I have changed the word, because they're not trained to look for hard words. And two, I'll be honest with you, writing at a grade 8 worked great for PhDs also. We have
Hmm.
gone and complicated the world. I look at newsletters that are the top newsletters. When you look at the English there, it's actually simple.
Yeah.
And I know it sounds like a weird answer to your question, but Jeff, Fuzzy Jeff, at the end of the day,
Either way.
we look at the basic characteristics of humans who want to progress. They all have managers. They all understand politics. And by the way, here's something that I will tell you, my trade secret sauce right now. I have hired people in Nigeria, hired people in India. I have hired people in Portugal. Why? Because Fuzzy, I acknowledge that we sometimes need to get people in my own org that actually speak the word. And when you do that, it's actually a smart thing to do. Two, my
Hmm.
tech partner is out of Serbia. And I specifically said I will not bring in a tech partner from India. I don't want a tech partner from the US because the US tech partners are expensive.
Hmm.
Mexico did come to mind. And so I ended up in Serbia of all places, right? And the Serbians operate at a different rate and a different clock. But they're also asking me a lot of questions about the platform. But why do you need this feature?
Mm.
What if I changed the feature? They were the guys that actually suggested to me, hey, I see you wanted to achieve this. We have some work we have done on email integration. I said, do it. That's it. I want email integration. So it's not just cultural ideas you get, but you also
Yeah.
get product ideas that people know will resonate with the local population. I can tell you right now, and I'll be very careful because I don't want to give you trade secrets. But my CTO's daughter's name is Shanice. We actually created a little gizmo called Shanice that actually goes to my current 695 people that I've onboarded. I onboarded them on my MVP, which is based on LearnWorlds. And the gizmo simply goes and says, hi, I'm Shanice. You've been using this for a couple of weeks. Can I ask you what's your experience about the tool and where do you think we should improve? Why do I do that? I do that because, boss, I need to acknowledge I don't have all the answers. And this is
Right.
what these people are telling me. You know what, Deepak? I like what you're doing on the resume builder, but I really wish that the resume builder allowed me to match to a job description in a single click.
Mm.
Then someone said to me, Deepak, you know what? Can you integrate to Indeed? That'll make it really powerful. So if I can get a listing of all Indeed, what do you call it, jobs that match my profile
Mm-hmm.
without having to, and I'm like, okay, I want to do all
Mm-hmm.
that, but
Yeah.
that's another competitive advantage. That's why we did this MVP. And I'm never going to publish that roadmap to people in detail. But Fuzzy, for once in my life, I'm actually pretty shocked how quickly we were able to use AI and personas and get people excited to talk to us. And that tells you. But at the end of the day, Fuzzy, I know one thing also. Human beings are going to get exhausted with tech. They're going to crave
Yeah.
human attachment. And I'm predicting in the
Yep.
next 2 years, you're going to see that shift. You're going to call a
Mm-hmm.
call center. They're going to tell you, I'm going to bill you $10 if you want to speak to a human being. And you'll do it, damn it. I want to speak to a human being. I'm tired of this. Repeat yourself. Please
Yeah.
hold. No, this cannot be done. I do not
Yeah.
understand. I know that that's falling dramatically, but it's
Yeah.
just my way of answering a question. I hope that helps.
Yeah. No, it does. It does big time. So for retail investors kind of looking at potentially jumping into this, and I don't want to talk specifically on your deal, just in general, in the retail investor mind, what should they be thinking about? Where should, what pitfalls could they be thinking about? What is the long term of something like this? Like, where are pivots that we might not know about right now? Where should they be kind of thinking about right now if they're looking at a deal like
Jeff,
yours?
I'm going to give you a cruel answer first. Here's what I'm telling. I actually get on calls. I spend half an hour and then the person says to me, love it, Deepak. I'm going to invest $150. And I have to ask myself, I just spent 30 minutes convincing someone to get 150. I've realized one thing. I respect the 150, but it takes a lot of effort to even get that 150. So I want to be I want to be very cautious how I say this. But convincing the 150 person is actually very easy because I then talk about the do good elements behind my raise.
Mm-hmm.
This is not another PowerPoint presentation tool. This is something that impacts human lives. And in an onslaught of AI, do we not want to focus on preservation of humanity and that judgment that happens in the moment? That's typically when it's easy to get $100 guy into the picture, honestly, because to me, that's a
Mm-hmm.
donation. People like
Yeah.
that, I don't want to get into a conversation of will happen with $100 because even if it happens to you, I might make 100 at 10,000, but then in 2 years from now, then comes the $1,000 guy, right? The $5,000 guy. That's when the perspective changes for me. That's when I really want to explain to them. My goal is pretty simple. We started off, and Wefunder gives you an opportunity to talk about what is the benefit you get by, the benefits, the tiers. I focused on if you give me $500, I'm actually going to give one membership free on my builder tier, which is a $22 offer per month, free for 5 years to one individual for $500. So this is my way of training and reminding people, whatever you're doing, yes, there is an economic benefit and upside you want to see, but there's also a do-good element to it. A lot of people do charity. If I just look at my own community, I kid you not, there are thousands and hundreds of thousands of Hindus in the US. They are giving me thousands of dollars to temples and to mosques and to so on and so on, right? The question I'm always asking is, all this philanthropy that is being done is awesome. So there's a certain group of people that can come in from that perspective, but that is always going to be the retail crowd. So to be honest, your question is a very powerful one. My instincts kick in to the benefits. The risk analysis that I would typically offer to people is as follows. And this is a funny one. This came out because the first three angels that I spoke to rejected me, told this to my face. You are the problem, Deepak. I said, explain that to me. They said, the problem is, Deepak, that you are the guy that's dynamic. You are the guy
Mm-hmm.
that's everywhere. You are the guy that's got a TV show. You've created this ecosystem. Who are you? Answer is as follows. Think of me as a guy that's got extreme passion, wants to build something out. If 2 years from now we feel that, Fuzzy, I am not the guy that should lead this organization to the future because my ICP doesn't want to listen to 55-year-old ICP, would rather listen to a 25, 35 dynamic person. Hey, let's find a CEO. I don't care.
Hmm.
At the end of the day, I'm not doing this for vanity's sake. I'm doing it because my heart says this is a problem that's worthy of solving. And if I'm smart, I'll still remain a majority shareholder, right? Hopefully. We leave it at that. But from a risk
Yeah.
perspective, yes, AI as a technology and to build something and call it a brain, it's not good enough, right? And I think, Jeff, that's something you have been communicating to me as well. And I know that. To be honest with you, I started off and I've migrated and flipped between. At one point, Perplexity was my life. Then at one point, Claude was my life. And right now, Claude Cowork is my life. You got to ask
Yeah.
yourself, how am I being asked to be loyal when I am disloyal to the very tools that I use?
Right.
I speak to
Right.
salespeople on a daily basis and the rockstar salespeople, and I actually interviewed 8 top guys who use AI a lot. Here's the fun part. Each of them individually spends nearly $200, $300 per month on what I call shadow IT. The company has its own custom GPTs and integrations,
Yeah.
but they have their own stuff. Why do they have their own stuff? Because guess what? They suddenly realize if I get exposed with that, everyone's going to get good. And then everyone gets good. That's not good, right? In sales,
Yeah.
your aura is the fact that gets you more money. And when you stand up and say that I use AI in the work that I do, then people are going to say, why do I pay you so much if all the thinking is being done
Hmm.
by an engine? So I
Yeah.
respect all those risks and so on. I
Yeah.
get that. My perspective is risk can be managed, and I'm going to focus on the upside rather than the risk.
Yeah. That's great. That's great. This is a fascinating conversation. I knew it was going to be a good one when we talked yesterday. This is great stuff. Where should we send people? Where should they dive in to learn more about maybe you, the company, obviously the raise, but where should we send traffic?
So very easy. My wife says that she has a mistress that she's fully aware of. That mistress name is LinkedIn. Find me on LinkedIn, Deepak Bhootra. That's it. Very simple. You can see my name. They just dropped a DR. Deepak
Hmm.
Bhootra. I'm the only Deepak Bhootra on LinkedIn. The other poor guys got Deepak Bhootra 666, Deepak Bhootra 999, and so on. I got Deepak Bhootra. On LinkedIn, drop me a DM, no issue. You can find me on Wefunder, wefunder.com/rise up at work. Rise up at work. One long flowing sentence there.
Okay.
And my raise is there. My pitch deck is there. Have a look. Drop me a DM if you'd like to chat to me. I'm available.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, I appreciate you taking time out of your day. This is a fascinating conversation. I love the energy. I love exactly what you're doing. And I can see this audience that you're speaking of that would benefit so much by diving into your world and some of your tools and techniques and just thinking differently about their jobs and stuff. This is
I
amazing stuff.
appreciate the
So
opportunity, Jeff. I
yeah, this is
appreciate this
great.
opportunity.
Yeah. So for all my listeners out there, I'll have all the links in the show notes. Obviously, click on those, go jump in, reach out, check it out, and see if it fits your portfolio. All right. Thanks, Deepak. Appreciate you. Bye now.